मैं वो सुन रहा था ना, तो मुझे लगा कि दे आर आर्ग्यूइंग फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ व्हाट वी कॉल फंडामेंटलिज्म ऑफ इंडिविजुअलिज्म.
Fundamentalism of individualism. Okay.
that this idea that every person, every individual, every family has the freedom or should have the freedom to decide whatever they think is appropriate, so is a little fundamentalist idea, because education is about socialization of a child. वो गली उनकी है ही नहीं, घर ही है उनका. घर के बाहर तो उनकी कुछ चलती नहीं है.
वो उनका नहीं है,
उनका है नहीं, तो घर तो अपना साफ कर लेंगे. बट दे डू नॉट हैव द अथॉरिटी to get together and clean up the street.
Yeah, neither the authority but also the intent has been taken out.
Individualism is a good thing to talk about, but but ultimately societies function as societies, and when societies break down at this level, reasons of hope become minimal.
नमस्कार, थैंक यू. वेलकम टू अनदर एडिशन ऑफ संगम टॉक्स. मेरे साथ आज डॉक्टर बजाज हैं, जो मेरे बहुत आदरणीय हैं. रियली इन्फ्लुएंस्ड मी फ्रॉम हिज फर्स्ट टॉक ऑन डेमोग्राफिक्स. Sometimes things get very gloomy when I'm talking to him. Sir, welcome.
Public schools should not be in a monopoly position. They should have to compete with private schools. Why should a parent be restricted to using his tax money simply in those schools that are run by the government?
Yeah, my concerns here are the following. By the way, I should mention to you that in Palo Alto, where I am a member of the school board, voted in a policy that all graduates of Palo Alto high schools will be proficient in foreign languages. That will be a requirement for graduation. There's no private school in the country, to our knowledge, that sets that kind of standard.
Why should there be? Why should you be able to tell John and Jane that they necessarily have to be proficient in a foreign language? Maybe they'd rather be proficient in music or in mathematics or in something else. I don't see that that's anything for you to boast about. Mm-hmm. It's just a demonstration of your willingness to replace their judgment by yours.
One of the aspects here is privatization of education, और जिसके बारे में मैं आज सर से चर्चा करना चाहता था. हमारी पिछली बार कॉन्वर्सेशन हुई, हमने सोचा रिकॉर्ड करें. सर, ये जो अभी वीडियो देखा हमने मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन का, दो बातें आ रही हैं. आपने सुना वो ब्रिटिश इकोनॉमिस्ट को, उसने कहा कि इन पब्लिक फंडेड स्कूल्स लैंग्वेज सिखाई जा रही है जो कहीं एक्सेस नहीं होती अगर वो पब्लिकली फंडेड नहीं होता. मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन आस्क्स अ काउंटर क्वेश्चन, व्हाई शुड द गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड व्हाट टू टीच द चिल्ड्रन लैंग्वेजेस, एंड दिस इज़ हैपनिंग इन NEP नाउ. वो कितनी भाषाएं सिखानी है, उसमें इंग्लिश की प्रेफरेंस आ जाएगी. अगर पेरेंट्स को बच्चों को अंग्रेज़ी सिखानी है, जर्मन सिखानी है, तमिल सिखानी है, उनकी चॉइस होनी चाहिए. ये गवर्नमेंट क्यों बीच में आए, एंड व्हाई शुड द स्कूल्स नॉट बी प्राइवेटाइज्ड, व्हिच इज़ मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन्स आर्ग्यूमेंट.
मैं वो सुन रहा था ना, तो मुझे लगा कि दे आर आर्ग्यूइंग फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ व्हाट वी कॉल फंडामेंटलिज्म ऑफ individualism.
Fundamentalism of individualism.
Okay. that this idea that every person, every individual, every family has the freedom or should have the freedom to decide whatever they think is appropriate, is a little fundamentalist idea, because education is about socialization of a child. The purpose of education is to make the child a functioning member of his society.
Okay.
And that's not an individual decision. What makes you a good member of your society cannot be a decision of an individual. In India, that level of individualism will be allowed only when you choose to take sannyasa from the ordinary society. I mean, that path is open, that you can do exactly what you want to do, but then you don't claim to do it as a member of the society. You can be a protector of the society once you go out. You can be much bigger than the society, but as a member of the society, you have to follow certain discipline. because uh, society is as important, or perhaps within the grasta is a little more important than the individual. So to me, that seems to be the fundamental flaw in this argument, because the definition of education is, even today, education books, sociology books will tell you, the purpose of education, school education particularly, is to make a child a functioning member of his society. And if it is to become a member of his society, what is to be learned, what is not to be learned, cannot be an entirely personal decision. And the other part, that you, on the other hand, have a far off state which decides what you should learn, the way today we are trying to do in the NEP, that from class 3, there will be, a child will begin to learn 2 languages, because some people in their wisdom have decided that a child can learn infinite number of languages, and the younger he or she is, more he will be able to learn. That is some other extreme, where the state has separated itself completely from the society and put itself above the state. So there's always this kind of state, the kind of state we are talking about, which we can sit far above and get actually somebody who has not been in Indian.
Isn't the state like that, sir? Always by its nature.
Uh,
Supremacist, telling everybody, मैं क्या करूँगा, welfare state is all about that.
There is always this, well, you can say that, but there are always a matter of degrees and matter of, well, in say, if I look at the US state today, of course it tries to do many things, but then the school board is also a part of the state. The parents are also in that sense a part of the states, because they can participate in the public schools. They are also a part of the state. And so there is always a give and take possible between what the Congress is in its wisdom, or the president in their wisdom are deciding, and what finally happens at a particular school district in interaction between the parents and the local elected bodies. And that may not be always ideal, but that interaction is possible. In India, such interaction was possible, because much of the schooling was, even till the 60s, was the local bodies, which were largely under the control of the local communities. Before that, anyway, before the coming of the British, the local communities will be the government. In fact, I'll give you a talk on that issue sometime, how that government constructed by the local people function. But unfortunately, today we have a situation where the school system has been taken completely out of the control of the local communities. This was not thought of to be ever happening in India.
But सर ये बताइए, प्राइवेटाइजेशन में अगर कोई स्कूल किसी गांव में चल रहा है, तो मतलब जाहिर सी बात है कि वो सब पेरेंट्स को क्या, उस समाज को क्या पढ़ाना वहाँ इम्पोर्टेंट है, वो स्कूल शायद वही पढ़ाएगा, चाहे वो पैसे ले रहा है स्कूल एजुकेशन.
पैसे वाली बात हम अलग से करते हैं, पैसे वाला विषय अलग है, वो भी महत्वपूर्ण है, पर वो अलग विषय है. Well, there's nothing to say that a school run by a corporate entity
or a small local private person,
or a small local private person,
running a school.
No, that's a very different thing. An individual, I want to run a school, that is a different issue. But when we talk about privatization, we normally think of a corporate entity running schools, maybe all over India, maybe in some part of India, or maybe in some district, but still a corporate entity which will have its world system, world view created by forces larger than the community, outside the community.
And you used a term in our last conversation, a phrase, it has the power of the state without the
Responsibility of the state.
इसको please explain करिए कि what do you mean by these corporate entities? How do they have the power of the state without the responsibility?
One is legally in India, in very many times, the state in India transfers its policing powers to the corporate entities in certain sections. Okay, so it does. Well, that if a corporate entity is running a school, to an extent it will have the state powers transferred to it within the school, including of imposing its syllabus. That you cannot expect people to come into the school and start shouting, why the hell are you teaching this to our children? It cannot happen either in a government school or in a corporate school.
Correct.
It is not.
दोनों जगह नहीं हो सकता
दोनों जगह नहीं हो।
कॉर्पोरेट में मगर सर शायद मुझे पक्का नहीं है बट शायद
And
ज़्यादा
I can expect this happening in a school in US even today. It may lead to consequences.
बट वहाँ भी challenges आ रहे हैं सर
आ रहे हैं because that kind of because everywhere the state has the habit of becoming bigger than what it is.
Bigger than what it is.
Okay, but in most functioning societies there will be countervailing forces working to ensure that the state doesn't become bigger than what is good for the society. In India, those countervailing forces unfortunately are not as strong. They used to be much stronger as they ought to be. Partly because of our colonial experience, because the state in India continues to carry the attributes of the colonial system through which it was built.
So what I'm hearing from you is that, see, when I use the term privatization of schooling, or from what I've read, that India's education at the village level, sir, सर्व शिक्षा अभियान तो totally broken है. और वहाँ पर मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन की आर्ग्यूमेंट रहती है कि उनका एक फ्रेमवर्क है, your money spent by you, your money spent by somebody on your behalf, your money spent by somebody else, a third party for you, your money spent by somebody else for someone else. 4 layers. He puts the government in the last. आपका पैसा है, जो ब्यूरोक्रेट है वो आपके सिर्फ आपके लिए नहीं समाज के लिए खर्चा कर रहा है, उसका zero interest है in spending it wisely. This is how he describes the government.
The solution to this is, which we have always been talking about, that the government has several functions, some of which have to be carried out at the central level. Many of those have to be carried out at in fact, a very large number of the functions of the state can be performed at the local level. And the authority to decide about how those will be performed should vest at the local level, which is how it used to be in the. Solution is not that you vest this authority in a third entity called the corporate. The solution is that bring the authority back to the local communities on governance issues which relate to the local communities. And education is certainly an issue, so is water supply. So, certainly an issue which relates to the local communities, because what you need to teach a child in Jhabua is about his land, his waters, his people, his heroes, his forests or her forests. And then you begin with that and then start relating it to how his forest relates to the Indian forest and to the world forest. You don't have to start the other way, because that leads really nowhere. And if that is to be done, you ultimately will have to transfer the authority to do this to the local level.
पूरा का पूरा अभी जो system of governance will have to be reimagined, I guess. Or at least rolled back.
It is surprising that that's what will have to be done in India, because I think we, even up to the 60s, in many affairs, many especially in education, it was the panchayats and the municipalities which were running the
So they were funding
schools.
it also?
They were from that's where the funding was coming from. They may be getting it from the state.
From the state,
but
they were deciding.
we tried to nationalize education with the Kothari Commission's report.
ये क्या है कोठारी कमीशन रिपोर्ट?
Oh, 1964, Kothari ji, who was actually a great exponent or proponent of local self-governance, a commission was set up, Indian Education Commission, to reimagine Indian education.
Why did they do it, by the way? What was the need? मतलब
Earlier, I thought
Was
that
it a
they wanted to
functioning
do
system?
something, but I've read his report. He talks about many things which should be happening or ought to happen. But ultimately, what his report created was what today we have the education services of various kind under the state. Because he said that yes, local communities are important, but we cannot give them the authority to decide on the syllabi. He said the local communities are important, but we cannot give them the authority to control the service conditions of the teachers in their schools. So it created a cadre of school teachers which was not answerable to the local community, but was answerable to the state bodies of various levels.
yeah, and so they had no interest in teaching because there was no consequence for them.
So that is
Only
what it
somebody-
led to. That's what it led to, because India was going in that direction. Unfortunately, at that time, we were not thinking.
And this is a Sovietization or centralization of the state.
They didn't think of it as that. They thought of it as improving the service condition of teachers, improving the. They didn't think of the way you are thinking it was Sovietization. They thought that these teachers are so poorly paid, and that local people come and say anything they want to them. Let's improve the conditions of the teachers, which will improve the quality of education.
Good intent.
No, that's how they thought, as far as I can make out of that. But one of the consequences was that once you, and this is not only in education, happened in all formalized things, that a teacher from the government service goes to a village, the kind of money he is getting, in that place there'll be tens of his equivalent capabilities who will work for 1/10 that money. Because so it was actually improving the condition of the teacher, but it caused much larger split in the local community and your education system. But that kept happening in every part of it. Wherever we started formalizing things, and we created a complete split of living standards, the people who come from the formal system and the people who represent the local communities, local systems of governance, local economic systems. That is special to India. I don't think this happens anywhere else in the world.
Oh, is it?
That is special to India. No, it may be happening in Africa, I don't know. But in the developed parts of the world, I don't think that's
The standardization of society. यहाँ जातियों की आप बात कर रहे हैं. You're talking about basically the needs of
No, what
jatis?
I'm saying, the economic split between people who represent the government and people who are outside the government, who are not in the formal corporate sector or formal government sector, the economic difference between the two is not that large as it happens to be in India. That's a special problem of India, that the salary structure and the remuneration structure in both in the government formal sector and in the corporate formal sector is order of magnitude higher than what is generally available
around the world.
in the country. I'm not generally available to other people who are outside this system.
Yeah, got it. So that gap is very.
That gap creates further problems, because your answerability of a person who's, say today a teacher may be getting 40,000-50,000. I don't grudge him that. But when he goes to a village, where most households will be far below that level.
जी.
How will he be able to be under any control of the local communities, of the local people?
I don't understand the connection. If he's getting 40-50,000
And
because of his
everybody,
economic power-
every one of his students
Yes.
coming from
Will be
coming
far
from a family will be maybe 10 times lower.
Yes, correct. That is correct. Yes.
So you are represent a
League.
different world.
League.
So there's really you're in different league. There's no communication.
No empathy, no communication, no context of that
So
child's
that is the
background.
kind of problems we are having. It is not the problem of having a government or not having a government. The same will happen when you have a corporate school there. That's it. Unless the kind of school you are thinking of, that some
हाँ, मेरा-
public-minded individual goes and
No, not
private.
only public minded sir. अभी जैसे पता चला, अभी मैं किसी से इंटरव्यू कर रहा था किसी का, एंड दिस पर्सन सेड मेरे को तो ना अपना स्कूल खोलना है अपने ही गांव में, कहीं हरियाणा में बात कर रहे थे, तो इससे डिसेंट प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी हो जाती है और अच्छा जीवन है. तो मैंने कहा कैसे जी, मतलब रेवेन्यू कहते सब लोग छोटी हम वो अपनी मंथली फ़ी पर भी आई कैन सेट अप अ डिसेंट फंक्शनिंग स्कूल, और मैं 8वीं तक तो आराम से चला सकता हूँ. उसके बाद भी मैंने देखा है कि बड़े सारे एग्जाम्पल्स है. इन्वेस्टमेंट पहले लगती है बिल्डिंग खड़ी करने में, बट ठीक ठाक कर सकता हूँ. अब एन इंडिविजुअल जो अपने गांव के एरिया में एक पब्लिक स्कूल खोल दे, दिस इज नॉट द मॉडल ऑफ प्राइवेटाइजेशन इन योर माइंड.
This is not the privatization model anywhere. It is just these are individual examples.
Yes. So this
of-
level of privatization is okay in your mind?
I don't know.
No, okay.
I don't know because for one, if somebody is doing it today, there's nothing to stop him from.
That is
doing
correct.
It, okay.
Yes.
So there is no issue as far as the government policies is concerned.
So
in
मैं
doing
मैं
the-
जब प्राइवेटाइजेशन ऑफ एजुकेशन की बात कर रहा था सर, मेरा मॉडल यही था, नॉट द कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन ऑफ एजुकेशन, कि एक विप्रो आ रहा है और कह रहा है 25,000 करोड़ हम कर रहे हैं और सारे एमसीडी स्कूल्स को हम मॉडिफाई कर देंगे.
Rahul Devan, you know that if this model that you're talking with
The latter.
Happens and starts catching up, there'll always be a Wipro which will be able to amalgamate them and
Okay.
take over, because that is the way capitalism works. If actually the kind you're talking about starts functioning and at somewhat large scale,
Then this is a natural outcome.
This
This is the
natural-
natural progression.
there will be natural progression to a.
Got it.
Actually, there is no easy way out except for empowering our local communities. And at all levels, a local community need not need a village. It will also mean a ward of a urban area. So wherever this situation where the local communities have no say in the functioning of their life in all aspects, in education, in water supply, in the who are the people who will come there, what are the kind of structures that will be built there. They have no say in any of this. How even the sanitation has to be managed, even that they don't have. This is extremely colonial. This doesn't happen even when we have governments functioning at that level. Even there, much of this will be under the control of the local communities in different ways. It cannot be no say by the local.
And actually this is the reason why there is so much apathy, क्योंकि किसी का कुछ लेना देना ही नहीं
किसी
है,
का
ये
कुछ
मेरा
है
काम
नहीं.
नहीं है, सब सरकार
मुझे
डिलीवर
याद है
करेगी.
बहुत पहले मैं करनाल गया था. करनाल हिस्टोरिकली इज इन अ वेरी ओल्ड हिस्टोरिकल टाउन. उसमें इतनी गंदगी थी एंड आई वाज वंडरिंग व्हाई. देन धर्मपाल जी साथ थे शायद. देन वी वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस कि देखो वो गली उनकी है ही नहीं, घर ही है उनका. घर के बाहर तो उनकी कुछ चलती नहीं है,
वो उनका नहीं है.
उनका है नहीं, तो घर तो अपना साफ कर लेंगे. But they do not have the authority to get together and clean up the street.
Yeah, neither the authority but also the intent has been taken out. I mean,
नहीं,
because
वो
of
प्रयास करेंगे तो रोकने वाला आ जाएगा.
ये भी है सर, बट प्रयास करेंगे और शायद काम भी कर पाएंगे, ऐसे भी बड़े सारे एग्जाम्पल्स हैं. बट मैंने ये भी
नहीं.
देखा है कि प्रयास भी बंद हो जाता है.
नहीं, वो
करना
प्रयास
ही नहीं है.
करेंगे तो पहले तो रोकने वाला आ जाएगा कि तुम कौन होते हो, ये गली तो मेरी है ना।
एक एग्जाम्पल मुझे याद आता है ऑडियंस के लिए, बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है। अभी मैं तिरुवन्नामलाई गया, रमणा आश्रम और अरुणाचला टेम्पल। तो मेरे अंकल साथ में थे, यूएस से आ रहे हैं, तो वो सोच रहे हैं कि थोड़े दिन कुछ महीने इंडिया रहा करें। मुझे बोलते हैं कि यहाँ पर रह सकता हूँ, I'd like to volunteer at the temple। मैंने कहा पागल हो गए हो क्या, टेम्पल में वॉलंटियर, HRNC की आप किसी की नौकरी हटवाओगे वो आपको डंडे मार के भगाएगा। यू कांट वॉलंटियर। गुरुद्वारे में कर सकते हो, किसी मंदिर में वॉलंटियर नहीं कर सकते। अभी ये स्थिति, यही सेम स्थिति
दिस
है।
इज देयर ऑल ओवर इंडिया। मतलब वो मुझे याद है, कितनी बात करनी है मैंने, दिस आई जस्ट गिव यू दिस इंस्टेंस। वंस आई वेंट टू टोक्यो, तो जो लोकल बस जो होती है तो साइट सीइंग बस, उसमें जा रहा था। And then I saw that there were several people with a particular, wearing a particular band, and in several buses they were going around. तो मैंने उससे, वो गाइड से पूछा कि अभी ये कौन लोग हैं? तो he said that there is people in Japan want to perform the service of sweeping the lawns of the king, because they think of the emperor as divine. And he was saying some 3 years queue for that,
For the service.
for giving this. And when somebody gets the chance, they come and spend 15 days sweeping the lawns, and then they are given an audience with the emperor. And after that audience, they are taken around the city of the emperor to show them around. So I related this to the Kanchi Acharya. तो I said कि वो ऐसा करते हैं, तो हमारे यहाँ क्यों नहीं, मतलब तिरुपति के लिए, if we made that arrangement that anybody who wants to serve can come and serve here, and in return he'll be offered a darshan or she. And the whole place, instead of being swarming with government servants, will be swarming with devotees, which will be a much different situation. तो he said कि तुम इकट्ठे करो लोगों को, कुछ करने वाले देश में तुम्हें दिखते हैं, तो बोलो मैं इनसे मैं करवा दूंगा, HREC वालों से मैं करवा। So the limits are both sides. We do not have social organizations which are concerned about doing this. मतलब हनुमानगढ़ी की क्या हालत होती थी, आप पता नहीं क्या है, अब भी मैंने सुना है कि कोई इंसाफ नहीं। तो neither the local community has an interest in cleaning it up, nor the systems which will allow this to.
मेरा एक्सपीरियंस ये है कि वो एपैथी इसलिए आ गई है कि मैं ना, एक थोड़ा सेंस ऑफ रेजिग्नेशन भी होता है, सिनिसिज्म भी होता है, मैं कुछ कर पाऊंगा तो है नहीं, मैं कहाँ लोगों को इकट्ठा करूँ। और वो सेंस ऑफ कम्युनिटी तो ख़त्म हो गई है कि ये कॉमन प्लेसेस में जो सेंस ऑफ कम्युनिटी थी वो
That's very dangerous, क्योंकि चलते, मतलब individualism is a good thing to talk about, but ultimately societies function as societies, and when societies break down at this level, reasons of hope become minimal.
आपकी ये कोठारी कमीशन रिपोर्ट से याद आया एक मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन का ही बड़ा अच्छा कोट, दैट द रोड टू हेल, और मे बी ओल्ड कोट, रोड टू हेल इज पेव्ड
With
विद
good
पाथ
intentions.
ऑफ गुड इंटेंशंस।
With good intentions. नहीं, कोठारी जी तो बहुत बड़े आदमी थे
अच्छा।
वास्तव में, एंड ही वाज ऑल फॉर पंचायत सेन, बट ये काम तो हम पंचायत पर नहीं छोड़ सकते हैं। मतलब उसमें वो एक जगह लिखें कि वो एग्रीकल्चर एजुकेशन पर देयर सेवरल चैप्टर्स, देयर इज अ सेक्शन ऑन दैट। तो ही इज सेइंग कि हमें, और उसी से ये हुआ होगा कि वी विल हैव टू स्टार्ट फॉर्मली टीचिंग एजुकेशन एग्रीकल्चर। तो उसमें वो लोग आगे जाके भी पढ़ेंगे, ग्रेजुएशन भी हो, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन भी हो। एंड देन ही सेज कि वी ऑफ कोर्स कैन नॉट एक्सपेक्ट कि जो वो वहाँ से पढ़ के आएंगे वो आके एग्रीकल्चर करेंगे। वो ही इज राइटिंग। तो ऐसा ही है, हम लोग somehow we have decided that our formal systems are to remain separated from our larger part of our society and our systems which run informally in the sense of this being outside the formal corporate or government structures.
So इसीलिए मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन बोलते हैं that wherever the state goes in, even if with good intentions, it creates a mess. अभी वो मोदी जी को सुना ये बोलते हुए मैंने, तो बहुत अच्छा लगा ऑनेस्टली कि मैं सिर्फ गरीबों में के लिए सरकार होनी चाहिए, मिडिल इनकम के लिए तो बिल्कुल नहीं होनी चाहिए. खुद बोल रहे थे कि आप सबको पता ही है कि सरकार कैसे गुड़ को भी गोबर बना देती है. तो Milton Fried, I don't know what he's achieving with centralization and all, but I mean the point was that Milton Friedman also says this, गवर्नमेंट को बीच में नहीं आना चाहिए, जो ऑपरेटिंग फंक्शंस ऑफ सोसाइटी है वैसे काम करे.
नहीं इसमें वो
बट आपका ये पॉइंट था कि दिस वाज द, आपने एक टर्म यूज करा था दैट द कम्युनिटी, लोकल कम्युनिटी वाज द लोएस्ट यूनिट ऑफ द स्टेट. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? इट इज नॉट द स्टेट, इट इज द कम्युनिटी. द स्टेट वाज, I don't know, an outcome of this.
I'll
And this
explain
lecture has
in
to
it,
happen.
I'll give you a lecture on that. But what does the state do? It collects taxes and then makes a budget
And
and distributes
or
taxes for, and the major functions it will be is
defense
performing
or
will be
health.
of
Well-being of
making
people.
roads,
Yes, right.
keeping the
Common
roads
infrastructure.
clean, providing for water,
जी
providing for lighting,
जी
right?
Ji.
Providing for education,
जी.
providing for cultural functions, and securing the borders,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now, these communities that you're talking about, which we have, they collect a share of their produce, and they allocate certain shares of that produce for all these functions that I've talked about.
अच्छा, security,
Security of the village,
education,
the maintenance of the
Maintenance.
roads of the village, maintenance of the water structures, maintenance of the teachers, of the cultural functionaries, of also the administrative functionaries.
So I was talking to a friend of mine,
And then they collect, say, perhaps 25%, and out of this 20% they allocate to this maintenance of the temples, of course, and they send some about 5% to the higher authorities. So जो ये नीचे वाला सिक्योरिटी वाली जो उनकी टीम है, उनमें जो बड़ा मिलिशिया लीडर है उसके पास जाता है, या जो बड़ा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर है, मतलब इफ इट इज हैपनिंग इन सिंगल सम विलेज सिंगलपेट, कांचीपुरम में जो देशमुख बैठा है उसके पास चला जाएगा. कुछ यहाँ जाता है, यहाँ के टेम्पल्स को जाता है, थोड़ा हिस्सा कांचीपुरम के टेम्पल को जाएगा. मतलब कांचीपुरम टेम्पल में भी रिसीविंग विष्णु ऑफ कांची may be receiving shares from 1400 localities out of the 2000 we know. And so they also pay for then the next level of
next level and the next level.
and then, which then goes for the next level. Now this is what else is a state if they are performing all these functions, collecting taxes. So instead of the taxes being collected by the central
By the central state, it is
the
a natural
unit
flow
which is
of-
sending it upwards, and that's what Mahatma Gandhi actually talked about as the polity of oceanic circles just before independence, 1946.
polity of
Oceanic circles. He said that the polity should be such of this larger waves. There's this at the center will be the local community, and around it will be the larger and larger circles, which will be, but the center will be the local community. Yeah. But it was not only an ideal. What I will give you in a talk is that this was a functioning system for at least, we know of at least 2000 localities of Chengalpet, which was running in this manner in as late as 1760s, 1780s, just before the British took over. Okay.
Before we end, just tell the audience what Chengalpet, what are you doing with that? And
There is this city of Chennai, and around this, covering three sides of, one side is of course the ocean, the other three sides, there's a district which was called Chengalpet district at some point of time. Now it is several districts. And this area was obtained by the British as a Jagir. around 1760s from the Nawab of Arcot. This will be one of the earliest areas which came under the control of the British. It is almost at the same time that Diwani of Bengal came under their control, and northern Sarkars came under their control. All these were approved by Shah Alam II at the same time on the same date. So this area, that Chengalpet area, it had about 2,200 localities in it, and the British wanted to, so once they took over, they wanted to know what they call the value of the Jagir, that what is the revenue they can generate from it. And they also wanted to know how this place is functioning now, because they wanted to set up their own administration. So they went about carrying out a survey. Partly it was a military survey, there was a topographic survey, but they also used the local patwaris, what are called the Kanakpillais, to give them the data on what is the produce of these localities for 5 years between 1762 to 1766. And they talked about the produce and how was this produce allocated to who had what share in this produce. And so essentially that survey gives you the complete political economy of the area, because it tells you what is produced and tells you how it is allocated. Plus it tells you the layout of each one of these localities, what are the streets and who lives on which street, what are the different jatis, different occupations that live in the street, what are the different temples. So we have a complete picture of the political economy as well as the geospatial details of that area. And that tells us about how India functioned just before the British came to set up their own system.
Replace their system.
Replace that
The
system.
old system with us. Yeah.
It's a very fascinating, because they're very beautiful localities for one. They're worth living in even today. And they are very ancient. So you will find records of these localities, and some of them from Pallava period onwards. We have been able to see this. And they're very affluent. The production is extremely high. You cannot imagine today that kind of production. And they're allocating the production for so many functions, so many diverse functions, that culturally it's a very rich life that they're creating for themselves.
So wonderful.
So we'll
Look forward
talk
to
about
that. We'll talk about it. Sir, before we end, I do have to ask, you have made a point here that you write, it would have been considered a sacrilege for a teacher to demand payment in return for imparting education, to pay a teacher money as
Or
higher
to
for
pay a
this-
teacher
or
money
to
as
pay
higher.
as higher for the services. The British understood this also, you're saying. And I think you've quoted somebody. And then you go on to say, like education, vidya, food, anna, and health, chikitsa, were also not considered economic goods in India, and would have been sacrilege for anyone to receive money for feeding another or for a vaidya for treating a patient. Vidya, anna, chikitsa were public goods, perhaps also moral and strategic goods. Isko please bataiye. This is so anti whatever I've thought about privatization as a way of solving.
हाँ नहीं, पर वो इसीलिए प्राइवेटाइजेशन के बारे में ध्यान से सोचना चाहिए, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इन द सोसाइटी इज नॉट इकोनॉमिक गुड, राइट. यू विल नॉट से कि हम हवा को प्राइवेटाइज कर दें
हाँ जी.
और पानी को कर दें. Now we have started doing it. I remember long ago, I was walking around in Ayodhya, and Ayodhya gets quite hot actually. So I walked into a small shop and asked him for water, and he gave me a bottle of water. तो मैंने पिया और फिर मैंने उसे कहा कि उसको पैसे दे दिया. मैंने कहा तुमने ये मुझे पानी दिया है, तुम्हें लगता है ये ठीक हुआ? तो क्या करें साहब, समय ऐसा आ गया है, नहीं तो पानी से के लिए कभी पैसा लिया जाता है किसी से. तो वो it is all societies have certain things which are not made part of the economic system. Food is certainly one of that. That even today, for most communities, it may or may not be, nations may or may not be a moral good, it's a strategic good. Because you cannot run a war without sufficient food, and that the West understood in the, particularly during the Second World War.
That triggers a thought, and that all our seeds are controlled by Monsanto right now.
That we have allowed to happen. That we have allowed to happen. But it's a strategic good actually, because so that is why grain production is subsidized extensively all over the world. There's no part in the world where grain production is.
So you're probably arguing for production subsidization and anti-farm laws, against farm laws of corporatization.
No, my understanding of farm laws is that maybe there are parts of agriculture which can be commercialized, but it's not the grain agriculture which can be commercialized. And if you remember, the objection to the farm laws came largely or perhaps exclusively from farmers who produce grains. It came from those areas which produce grains because they were the ones who were getting
बट
effect.
क्यों सर ऐसा क्यों कि वन इज स्ट्रेटेजिक आपने बताया ऑन फूड यू कांट फाइट वॉर्स बट हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन क्यों सर्विसेज नहीं इज दैट अ मॉरल थिंग कमिंग फ्रॉम
मतलब चरक संहिता में तो वैद्य के बारे में बहुत सारा अनुशासन बताया गया है। उसमें एक ये है,
व्हाट धर्म इज
हाँ, एक उसमें ये है कि जो वैद्य अपने रोगी से पैसा मांगता है, वो मुझे याद नहीं है एग्जैक्ट सेंटेंस, बट कि उस जैसा नीच कोई नहीं होता है, और वो कॉरस्पॉन्डिंगली जो अनुशासन रोगी के लिए बताया गया है उसमें क्या है कि जो जिस रोगी के पास साधन होते हुए भी वैद्य को नहीं देता है उसका, सो दीज आर म्यूचुअल डिपेंडेंसीज टेकन आउट ऑफ द economic exchange, and there are reasons for it, because you should receive health care irrespective of whether you are economically competent to receive or not. You should receive food irrespective of whether you have the purchasing power to do it or not. No society says that if you don't have the purchasing power, go hungry. We are not responsible. It's not said. Even there are societies who will kill, but they'll not let people go hungry on the streets. England had this anti-truancy laws that they'll not allow hungry people on the streets because you cannot run a society on that.
मतलब अभी तो बिल्कुल उल्टा है। अभी तो अमेरिका से, भारत केवल नहीं बट यूएस में इफ़ यू गो टू अ सिटी लाइक पोर्टलैंड, वहाँ तो ड्रग्स और ये भीख मांगने वालों का वो अंडर द ब्रिज ज़्यादा बुरा हाल है दैन से दिल्ली और मुंबई।
Unfortunately, America is becoming a disoriented society. I don't know, because I don't know how much we can keep talking. I was sitting on that ये लॉस एंजलिस का वो जो सेंट्रल स्टेशन है, unfortunately late in the night I had to sit here. And the kind of hunger I saw there, I can't imagine that it's unimaginable. The old people, young girls, and they certainly do not have food for the night. They do not have cover for the night. But this is not considered. Well, for economic reasons alone, societies do not let it happen, because when this happens, societies break down. That's the.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। मतलब पूरा मैं यहाँ से मूव हुआ था आगे प्राइवेटाइजेशन, अब आप मुझे वापस मरोड़ तड़ोड़ के एक टोटली न्यू पर्सपेक्टिव में ले जा रहे हैं। थैंक यू वेरी मच।